what's your kind of number one rule for screenwriting? I mean, like, I've read Stephen King's book, and his number one rule is, ass in chair, hand on keyboard. And I guess, the number one rule is show, don't tell. But when you sit down to write a script, what is the what's your rule? What's your thing that you guys do? And we'll start with Andy.
Structure is really number one. It'll save you a whole lot of rewriting if you can kind of organize, get your act breaks, get your plot points down, organize your script in a good outline before you actually just take off and start writing. And when you do finally finish the script, and I like to write fast. I mean, I like to, knock out a first draft in a month, but that's not the draft you're going to send to anybody. Then you're going to, rewrite it 5, 6, 7 times. I mean, get people to read your script. You only have one chance when you send it out. That's it. Yes, you can always change the title and send it out a year later. Change your name if you want. But realistically, get people's opinions. Give it to 2 or 3 people. See what they have to say. Make changes. Give it to 2 or 3 other people. It's time consuming because people aren't going to read it the day you give it to them. It's going to take, a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks sometimes. But, it's so valuable if you can get other opinions and then just keep reworking it until it's finally at the point where the comments you're getting are so trivial that they're really kind of insignificant that you really think that you're at the place where it's ready to be submitted. Once you do submit it, then you'll get a whole bunch of other comments that you never even realized. But at least you'll feel that it's in at least as good a condition as you can. So creatively, is what I'd say. From a professional point of view in terms of advice, be social. It's a social business. It's not really about, ideally the writer should just be able to sit home and write and have someone else do the sales and the business for them, but that's just not the way it works. As people were talking about here, you got to go out, you got to go to the parties, you got to go to the networks. If you are an extrovert and an A-type personality, that's a real huge advantage because there are plenty of very, very successful screenwriters who are pretty mediocre at best, but because they're great salespeople, they're selling themselves, and people want to work with them. So they keep on getting jobs, and they keep on getting hired. And look at the movies they turn out; they're pretty horrible, but they're still working. And there are a lot of great writers, here in Ohio, who no one will ever discover because they never get their stuff to anybody. They're just not able to get out there. So be social, and when you do make contacts, keep those contacts. I mean, I'm a guilty, as bad as anybody. I mean, there was a writer when I was first getting started that my agent had just signed, and she sent him to me and said, see if you can help him out and get him a job at Disney, because I had an overall deal at Disney. So I read a script of his, and I thought it was good, but I didn't think it was real saleable. But I went into the Disney executives with him to try to sell a pitch, and they didn't want to hear anything about him. It's like, forget it. He had done like a concert film or something like that. And that was the end. I never kept in touch with him, and it was Steven Soderbergh. So had I kept in touch with him, who knows what I could be doing today.
Well, yeah, you're nice to everybody because you just never know who that next person is, and it'll kill you. It drives you crazy because people won't out and out say to your face, "You suck, get out." They'll say, "Well, thank you, we'll get back to you," and then they throw your script in the garbage. So, but you talked about structure. Are you a Sid Field style?
Get into that much. I mean, I've kind of absorbed. I mean, I teach here at Ohio State screenwriting, so I've kind of got my the structure of my class down, and one of my lessons is structure.
Well, for those who don't know who Sid Field is, tell me what his little
the guru
mantra is.
Yeah, screenwriting books. I think he probably wrote the first screenwriting book back in like 1980 or something. Yeah. I mean, since then there are probably dozens of screenwriting books that you can read, and his is valuable. It's sometimes hard to really understand it until you actually do it, but you really do have to break down your story, because it's not like writing a novel. I mean, a novel could be 100 pages, it could be 500 pages, it could be 700 pages. It could be read in a weekend, it could be read in 3 weeks. A screenplay is, is a blueprint for a movie that is supposed to be between 90 and 100 minutes long, and you have to have a beginning and a middle and an end, and you have to fit it into that time frame. So every screenplay has to be similar in that sort of, realm. I mean, there are exceptions, but 90% are all 3-act structures, and the Act 1 break occurs 20 minutes into the film, and the Act 2 break occurs 75 minutes into the film, and it's just that's the way it is. So if you understand that beforehand, I break my scripts down into 5 turning points instead of 2 or 3, because then you can follow the path a little bit more, and if you stick to that, it'll just the story will flow much better, and you'll really kind of know where you're going, instead of just kind of, I think I'll start writing the script and just see what happens. I mean, that's how you end up in trouble. The very first script I ever wrote, they told me my Act 1 break was on page 67. Well, that's a problem, because I didn't even know what an Act 1 break was.
Yeah, no, I wrote a lot of scripts, and I hated Sid Field because I thought, it's too formulaic, and it's like, I wrote 3 scripts in a row and later looked at Sid again and realized I was writing Sid Field's thing. I was like, page 31, he makes this revelation. Page 40, blah, blah, blah. I was like, I don't even mean to do it, but if you're going to write, I guess, for a commercial audience, it works. I hate to say it, it does. So
I think there's an irony to Sid Field's. I think what he says is true and good about the way he analyzed scripts, and here's how the structure is. But I think overall it's hurt the business, or it's hurt the quality of movies, because that's what everybody follows now. Rather than trusting their gut, they read terrible scripts and go, it's Sid Field. Here's the breaks, here's the structure, here's where it's supposed to be. And so you have people that have no business writing scripts and getting movies made because they read Sid Field. And it's just I think ultimately led to all this formulaic crap.
Well, that's true. So,
the over-reliance on it.
But tell us about your writing. What's your rules? What's the
I think what Andy said is very important about write your first draft with the knowledge that there's going to be other drafts. And what I have to fight, I think I finally succeeded in not doing this, but I used to rewrite as I went. I'd write 20 pages, and then I'd look at it, that's no good. I'd rewrite it again, and it would get to 25 pages, that's no good. And so it just became this long, exponential process. Just write your first draft and finish it. Knowing that you're going to write a second and a third and a fourth, just finish it. And structure is very important too, but it's like a roadmap. It's like, I once heard somebody say about filmmaking that the script is a roadmap. It's you can stray from it and have a good time, but you better have the map so you don't get lost. And you take that back a step, and that's the way I feel about screenwriting. The outline is the map. Yeah. And you can have a good time, and I always stray from my outlines somewhere. I mean, when I look at the finished script, it really changed from what the outline was. But at least I didn't get lost, because I knew that I had an outline that worked.
Yeah. So do you guys all work from outlines? Show of hands.
You know what, yeah, so I think we're onto something here. I mean, we all have a very similar way that we approach writing, and I do the same thing. I've always struggled with structure. I would try to beat it into my brain and say, it has to be this, it has to be this. And then when I would write, it would kind of cloud the creativity part. So you see I talk with my hands. You should see the way I type. It's frightening. But anyway, the structure I've always had trouble with. And I do like to do what you're not supposed to do, which is I like to sit down at my computer and just start writing. Even if I don't know where I'm going, I just want to write because I'll have an idea. And so I'll sit there and I'll write and write and write. And sometimes that idea just goes into my little journal of ideas. And I may get that out later and put it into something else that's bigger and broader and turning into a real screenplay. But you are so right, because so many times I have started something that I thought, this is going to be brilliant, and then I don't know where to take it. So yeah, if you can sit down and kind of write out a structure, like, well, I want to start here, I know I want to go here, and I'm pretty sure I want to end here. Even if you can just do that much, it will really help give you a little guideline of, where to go and what to do. And then all the beautiful things happen as you're writing, going on that little journey. But Does that make sense? Because I don't know if you guys struggle with that, but
And
I certainly do.
sometimes it's not as involved. I mean, sometimes, depending on like if you're hired to write something, obviously they want to see an outline first before they're going to give you the dough to write it. So then it has to be pretty detailed. But for something that's just personal, sometimes the outline's just in my head. It's a very sparse outline, but I kind of know where the breaks are and I kind of know where the turning points are, and I know where I'm going.
I have to ask these guys this because this is something that I do as a writer also. I don't know if you listen to a lot of music and that influences what you write, but I can just be driving to work and have the radio on and I'll hear a song. It can be a song from any era, 30s, 40s, 50s, what have you. And I'll think, ding, I have visions. And I'm like, I've got to go home and write this down. And that little nugget may turn into a full-blown story and then eventually a screenplay because I just won't let it go. So I don't know if music is a big component.
I mean, I get ideas when listening to music. I can't listen to music when I write, or it would drive me crazy. But yeah, you get ideas. Or just sometimes it's more of a mood. It's not a specific idea. It's just I'm thinking of some vague idea, and I hear this piece of music that I just say, oh, that's a perfect theme song for what I'm thinking of. And it just kind of, listening to that puts me in the mood to write this thing. It's not like the idea comes from the music. It's just like it's sort of a soundtrack to whatever idea I have. Yeah.